Peace and prosperity be unto all who's listening and watching. It's your girl, Shay Miller Ray, and I'm back with another video. And today we're going to talk about the scale of subconsciousness and all the different scale level to it, and like which one's the lowest, which one's the highest, what they mean when you experience them, what part, how to identify them when you are operating in those different consciousness. So let's get started. The highest level of consciousness is enlightenment, the enlightened state. The enlightened state is things are done as me. It's the spiritual, it's the highest self, your higher self, your greatest self, your most esteemed you in most moments in life. That consciousness allows you to know, it allows you to correct yourself, it allows you to operate and the best performance you can do. This state of mind does not speak negatively. It speaks very high, very positive, very uplifting. The enlightened you is more tuned into your inner intuition. So it gives you a sense of when things are good and when things are wrong, and it allows you to know, make that first decision and not second guess yourself. So the enlightened you is it's kind of like the monk you. The monk is like the one who out of all yous will make the best decision ever. Like, it's gonna make the best decision for you because it's the side of you that is sure. It's the side of certainty and sureness and content with your answers and content with what you say and content with how you say them, because you're very sure about the way you say them, and you're very proud, not proud in a boastful way, but proud of yourself. So it's the very happy, profound, proud you who is very established and very happy, and very in tune with intuition and very enlightened, and it's a more kind version of you. So it's like the good version of yourself, the best version of yourself, the greatest. Okay, so the next one is below it, and the first one we just talked about was the enlightened state of consciousness. The next ones we're going to talk about the spiritual reality, the spiritual state of things, and that is things are done through me. So it's not until things are done in you that things can be done for other people through you. So we are just spirits having a human experience, and what happens to us often happens to other people, and what change in us often the change in us transfers and happens in the world around us. So the more we change, the better we become, the better things happen in the experiences with the people around us, because the greater we become, right? On a spiritual aspect, the spiritual you is very detached from the world and things, and that part of you can be very non-materialistic, very just aware, in a state of being of just connected to everyone and everything, very in tune with both parts of yourself, the yin and the yang of you. It's very interesting. This side of you gets you drawn into a lot of different stuff. And sometimes you'll live often in your head because of the spiritual realm, the spiritual aspect of things. You won't really be in the physical as much. It's very powerful, guys. But like the spiritual aspect of things, until you do things internally, you can't do things externally. So until you profoundly do things within yourself, things that you do on the outside is kind of vain, because you skip steps to the process. It all has to begin with you. And I'm not talking about the outer surface. Anybody can just fix up a car and wash the car and make it look good. but it's not okay for the car to look good on the outside if you get in the car and there's trash everywhere. So that same applies to you. We are vehicles. This vessel we're in, this is a vehicle. So like I said, we are spirits having a human experience. We live in a body, but we are spirits. Here to give our experience, our knowledge, our wisdom, and what we learn, and pass it on down to other people. But the greater we evolve within ourselves, the greater, things and people and their experiences and everything like that gets better. So it's just about growing and being accountable for your growth, and understanding that the spiritual aspect is a very detached ability to be disconnected from the material, but very connected in the spiritual. Spiritually connected to people, animals, nature, and all things around you, but being disconnected and being very content with where you are. It's like the most gratifying aspect of life. It's just living in a state of gratitude, thankfulness, and just being very content with who you are, where you are in your growth, even though you're not where you want to be. So we're going to get to the next one, and the scale of subconsciousness, and it's the linear mind. The linear mind, the mind that plays tricks on you, the mind that keeps you trapped in the depths of your mind, the mind that keeps you trapped in the void of darkness. Sometimes we get dwell over the things that we can't change sometimes, and sometimes the past, and sometimes ahead. And the linear mind is things are done by me. It's the physical. It's what you can do with this flesh. It's what you can do with this body. It's all strength of the physical is what you can do. It's what you think of in your mind and the things you put into action. So the linear mind is having the ability to do things and doing it in your own strength, in your own courage, in your own will. So that part of you is like, you need to train it, because that part fights the enlightenment you, the spiritual you. It is the part where you're very depressed. That part of your mind is easily persuaded, easily attacked. Attacked by your negative thoughts. Attacked by just, it's not very proud of things. It's not, if you accomplish something small, it won't give you the credit for it. So that part of you would have to you have to do the work and build that side of you up, because the linear mind is very different from the other parts of the subconscious scale. It is not the high as you, it's getting down to the very low self. So we went from the high, which is enlightened, and then we went to the next one, which is the spiritual, and the next one is the linear you. And the linear you is like more tied to the physical world. It's more about what you think and your opinions and all this other stuff. It's not very factual. It's based on experience, definitely. But it's the part of you that is very negative, wrestle with negativity, and ultimately you have to overcome those things. We live in a world where a lot of things are happening, and it's hard to move on. It's hard to stay encouraged and be motivated. But this world is filled with much controversial thoughts and very over opinionated opinions from other people, and even including yourself. Very contradictory things going on. Some things that are said to be right are truly wrong, and some things that are said to be wrong are truly right. But there's no real thing. All things are a form of perspective, and the way you perceive it at different points in your life will ultimately define what you think about them. Yeah, because every stage in our life, we see things differently. How you saw your situations and things from the past when you was in that particular point in your life was different from how you see it now at this stage of life. So it's same with reading a book. You read a book today, and how you perceive it today will not be the same way you perceive it the next year or next 5 months after you read it once. We're constantly growing as people, and our perspective is constantly shifting and constantly changing, and we're constantly evolving as a people. So you have to be mindful that as you train your linear mind, that you have to be mindful of the contradictory thoughts and behaviors and things that go on in this world that can sometimes make you unsure, uncertain, worried, stressed, concerned, full of anxiety, even have depression. So that part of you is hard to control, I'll show you, but you definitely need to have some sort of discipline so that you can train that part of yourself and your mind and give yourself ability to grow as an individual. So holding yourself accountable is the best way to go with that. And the next part of your subconsciousness is the lowest state of being, okay? It's the lowest state of self. So now we went from linear mind, we're going to go down to the ego. The ego. So the ego is things are done to me. This is the most offensive nature and the most competitive nature there is. And the reason why I say this is because this part of you is easier to be offended than any other you ever. It seems like it's the most vulnerable you, when it shouldn't be, but it really is. Once a person's ego has been, attacked or felt disrespected, a person can feel offended, upset, or can get aggressive. Now, ego is good in a yin-yang perspective. Yin-yang in a sense that ego is good in one aspect, meaning that it's good to be competitive, it's good to be ambitious, it's good to be very proud, but not proud in a way that you're so proud, you know what I'm saying? So ego is like where pridefulness and boastfulness and all this other stuff, conceited and all these different traits, the lower traits, is where those traits come from. And though like ego can be good as far as like, self-esteem, it depends on what you give your ego, what make it be good, So if you feed your ego good stuff, like build this confidence, build this strength, build it up in a good way, then ego is good. But if you feed it things that it doesn't need, negative, you get offended easily, jealous, envy people, ego's good and bad, whether you use it in a bad way, because you can't be fully good all the time. You gotta make mistakes sometimes. So the ego is the lower state of you, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a yang. Now, if you're somebody who feeds your ego the worst of the worst, what it desires, because the ego is the lower state of being, meaning if you don't balance that part of you, it will lose control. It will ultimately take over all your subconscious state of beings, and it will wholeheartedly run you and your heart. So this is why, though you can live for your passions, you can't allow your heart to run your mind. And then though you have an ego, you shouldn't allow your ego to influence all of who you are. Though it's good to be proud of who you are, do not let that define the fact that your ego is the lowest state of being. But you must accept all who you are, your dark, your light, your good, your bad, your scars, your mistakes, your flaws. You must accept everything that you are, but I'm saying you must feed yourself. So I want to leave this thought on your mind today. If your ego was a physical person right beside you right now, because I would hope everybody is a good person. But I'm not necessarily, there's no really such thing as like good or bad people. Just ugly or good hearts, okay? So I would hope you feed your ego the best, because we ultimately want things that are not good for us in our lower state of being. So if your ego was a person, what would it need to be better on a good spectrum, right? So what would you give yourself? Not those things that you give it when it's in a lower state, not your addictions, not your patterns, not your behaviors, not your coping mechanisms. I'm talking about what would your ego need from you if you given it what it really needs from a good perspective, like confidence and building it up, because that's like also where your confidence is, like your ability to overcome comfort zones. It all starts from the very lower state of being, and it rises to the higher subconscious. So you have to work on your ego, because both of them are good for you. But if you work on the negative part of you most, you're not giving yourself a chance to survive or be successful and thrive in this life. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and allow me to know what you love the best about this video. I love you guys. I hope you guys have a prosperous day.